have here is the Fryette designed Sound City Master Lead 50. It's a majestic, glorious 50-watt beast of an amp. It has a 100-watt brother, but I have the 50 here and it's killer. That is plugged into the Fryette Power Load. Power Load, I got that right. Not the Power Station, which we all know and love. Power Station. Yeah, station. Power Station being Fryette Reactive Load. So you take your loud amp, plug it into the Reactive Load sector. That'll bring your level down to 0. And basically functions as a dummy speaker and makes the amp think it's plugged into a speaker. Then you use the internal tube power amp to bring that level back up wherever you'd like. So you could have this raging amp tone, very low volume. So the Power Load is the same reactive load that's in this guy, but now you also have an analog cab and mic emulation circuit. Let's dig a little deeper into that. Let's start with the load section. Of course, you have the level control, that's the output of the device, and you have voicing switches. So when they're set to flat, it's not a reactive load, it's a flat load. To get the reactive load, where the amp is thinking it's connected to a speaker and you get the tonal compensation for that, it needs to be at edge and deep. That's full reactive load. So, I mean, I would think of it as that's the starting point. Now, what's cool is you get to trim that back if you like. So going from edge to bright or deep to warm lessens that effect. And then going to flat, that effect is completely out. It's not flat is normal, flat is non-reactive load. When you have your amp plugged into a speaker, that will also deactivate these tone switches. So if you want to take advantage of them, you'll have to use it without the speaker going through the power load. Head's going direct to the computer through the analog cab and mic emulation. Edge and deep switches are all the way up. I forgot I was going to demonstrate something. It's a good tone. I'm just happy to go off and enjoy the tone. Yeah, I was going to show you the reactive load on and off here. Let's turn those off. I mean, it's a night and day difference. So I'm sure you've seen when speaker manufacturers put out their frequency graph, and there's a resonant peak in the high part, and there's another resonant peak in the low part. That's essentially what you have control of here, is how much of those peaks you're going to dial in, which helps you to contour to a sound of like more old greenback style or a more modern vintage 30, and get some of that extra cut in there, or warm it up, or however you like to do it. Low mid, you have a nice center detent and you could lessen it or boost the effect. Also high mids right here. The emphasis control is really more like the microphone. When you're standing in front of a speaker cab and you get all that presence, if you sort of like moved your body away and around, you still hear the amp really nice and loud and clear, but you've lessened that presence. That's essentially kind of the effect that's happening with the emphasis. There's also a voicing switch for the emphasis control. So air is sort of the top end air of that, and bite is a little more of an upper mid-range setting for that. Low mid on the contour. So it brought out all that body, and then extreme settings. This is going to scoop out the body to the other direction. And we'll go to the high mid. And so that's the other sort of resonance point. It's going to be that presence, but it's going to be on a higher frequency, a little bit of cut. Ooh, that gets extreme. We're just going to skip past and go back. When you crank that, man, they gave you some headroom. They gave you some sound to work with there. All right, so now between the two, let's see. Let's add a little body here. Yeah. A little body and a little mid cut. Man, and it's just so immediate. I mean, that's what's really fun about it. Set those back, and then we'll go to the emphasis, which is basically the mic sort of moving around here. Switching to air, that was bite. Subtle shift, it just shifts up a little bit higher. Let me pull that back. And that's really nice when you're in the headphones. It kind of takes the bite off of it, really. And you could add a little body, add a little cut here, and then pull that emphasis down. You add a little drive pedal goo here. Back at flat. Flat is where I really like it the most. And then I'm just good with adjusting emphasis if I want it like warmer. Or a little to bright more. To bright more. To cut more. Yeah, that's nice. Let's take a look at the back of the unit, starting with the impedance switch. Now this is cool. Not all load boxes have impedance switches. So I know there's a lot of guys that run 16. I run at 8, mostly because I don't want to accidentally plug one head into the wrong place as I'm switching. And then the 4 ohm setting is great because like I've got old Fender combos that I want to run through this, and I want it to run the way it's used to running. So moving over to the headphone effects loop and the headphone section, plug in your headphones, take your 100 watt head home, 50 watt head home, and you could sit there jamming with a big full bodied sound. You put your pedal board in the effects loop. You've got all the goodness right in front of you. You could have nice room or plate reverb, delays, and then you can plug in your iPhone into the program input and you're playing along with tracks and it's going to sound killer. Aux input is, say you have a preamp or maybe a preamp pedal and you want to run through the outputs for this. That's where you plug in there. Your amp in, your cab through to go to your big cab or small cab, whatever you're into. And then you have 2 direct outs, one with the analog cabinet and mic emulation, the other without. So the other would be just like what comes out of the power station, which is a great thing. And you can have all of these options at your fingertips at all times. For me in particular, clean sounds, low gain sounds, and solo-y lead stuff really ring out so nicely with the analog cab and mic emulation. It's as if they're just not getting as filtered as when you're even on with a mic on a cab. The note just really rings out loud and bold. It's really nice. I want to show you one more thing, which is mixing the analog mic and cab emulation with an IR. So 2 ways I like is you take your analog emulation, throw it hard left, take an IR, throw it hard right, and you get this big wide sound without it being like a stereo chorus thing. think it's really big and really jumps out at you. Another way is to go and get an IR that's a stereo IR of just the room. So here I have the analog emulation dead center, and the room, which is just the room part of the IR, just kind of slowly coming up around it to add some depth. Here's dry, or not dry, but direct. And then here's with the IR around it. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. See ya.